Hey mamas, welcome to another expert chat session. For today's session, I'm joined by the wonderful Alicia, who is a doula, and we are going to be chatting about the role and importance of your birth support person. So, a very important topic in which we are going to be covering what is the role of a birth support person, who can be your birth support person, and how can they support you during pregnancy, childbirth, postnatally. What is the preparation and education involved for them in this process? And also, Alicia is going to be sharing her top tip for your birth support person. So it's going to be a wonderful session that is going to be relevant to you, whether you are in any stages of your trimester or say you are closer to your due date. So a very exciting chat, and I invite you to watch this video along with your partner so that you both can be on the same page and be prepared for your childbirth as well as your labor. So I hope you enjoy this discussion. Kicking off the discussion, Alicia, would you like to tell us what is a birth support person in your knowledge?
I believe that a birth support person is somebody who is there for you throughout your labour and birth journey, and their sole focus is making sure that you're okay, and that's emotionally, practically, spiritually, taking care of you, and being that cheerleader, I guess, in the background. They might often blend into the background, but always knowing that you have that person there. That's kind of how I see it. But I guess there's no real right or wrong to that question either.
Yeah. So in your experience, what do you think? Why do you need a birth support person? If you could elaborate on their role.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have somebody who is, I guess, on your same page and standing by you. And I feel like we all feel stronger when we have that support team or that network of people who are looking out for us just in our ordinary lives. So in birth, when it's such a vulnerable time, and often when you're in that, you're less in your thinking brain, and sometimes you aren't able to speak so clearly or advocate for yourself, that you have that person there to look out for you and who knows your birth wishes. And I think it's really important to have somebody in your corner in birth.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree to that point, because when you are in that contraction, you are not in a state to probably speak for yourself. So your birth support person is your advocate, and he or she really knows what you want and can communicate on your behalf. So can be your spokesperson at that point. So that's a very important point. So Alicia, let's come to the meaty part of this discussion, which is if you can tell us, how can your birth support person support you in those different stages of labor? So probably if you're talking about the early stage, the active, maybe the pushing, and even after birth. So if you could touch upon that.
Yeah, definitely. I'd also love to add pregnancy to that as well.
Yeah.
And your birth support person pregnancy, having them on your same page in that stage and making sure that they're looking out for you. Yes, it is called a birth support person, but technically they are your support person for that entire season that you're in, that entire journey. So in pregnancy, making sure that that person is looking out for you in those same ways, and that you're comfortable and that you're taken care of. And then in those stages of labour, there's going to be many ways that you can support a woman in labour, and it is going to differ based on that woman's personal preferences, I guess.
Yeah.
So some people really like hands-on support in labour, and some people would prefer everybody to have complete hands off. They don't want to be touched. It's too sensitive of a time. So if you're willing to be touched in that season, you can offer things through a birth support person like massage, trickling water down their spine if you're in the water, holding them, and just carrying a lot of the weight as well, because that releasing of gravity can really help in labour. Making sure that they're not thirsty and that they're keeping up their water intake. So taking sips of water regularly. What else would there be? There's so much that you could do, and I think it's really important before labour starts to really go over how you best like being cared for, and thinking about perhaps when you're sick and what are the things that make you feel really nurtured and taken care of in that season where things are a little bit more vulnerable, and perhaps those same things might work in birth, in labour and birth. So if you like water, if you like having a shower or a bath or a hot face washer on your forehead when you're unwell, you also might like these things in birth as a way to calm your system and to reset. I can't remember if I've covered all your points of that question. Was there anything else?
No, I think you have covered, and those are super important ways. I love them. If you could tell us a little bit about the pre-active stage, like how can your partner support you in those early stages of labor?
Yeah, sure. I definitely recommend staying at home in those early stages of labour if you are birthing in the hospital, to have a more seamless and comfortable experience in pre-labour. When your partner or your birth support person, whoever that is around, they can offer support in making sure that you have enough sleep, that you're perhaps moving around in those in-between stages. You might like to have them take you out to the street and do curb walking and have one foot on the curb, one on the road, and just get things moving along a little bit more. Encouraging you to go to the toilet and make sure not to hold on to any urine, because that bladder can get in the way in birth. So getting into that habit. Just ensuring your comfort. So perhaps you want a foot massage, perhaps you need some calming music, a nice meal, whatever it might be. I think it's just really important to make sure that that woman feels really cared for in those pre-labour stages.
Yeah, and that
is that kind of what you were looking for, or were you thinking of something along different lines? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, it's about making you feel comfortable, because sometimes with the onset of labor, you can, start getting a bit like, oh, what's coming up next? Like, this is hurting. This has started to hurt.
Yeah, and just having someone to ease your fears and to just say it's okay, like this is normal.
Yeah.
You're strong, you can do it. Have somebody cheering you on is really good as well.
Yeah, and someone, I know my husband helped me time the contractions, so that was really helpful. And calling the hospital, being there, ready to call the hospital if they think that you're approaching that active phase. So absolutely, you touched on those wonderful points there. Now coming to the pushing phase and the second stage, Alicia, what are the ways by which partners can support women there?
I think it's really important for that partner or birth support person to trust that woman and to be in that calm state and to not freak out and have that poor birthing woman have to then console their partner. So be their cheerleader and don't make your partner need to console you, if that makes sense. You need to be strong in that stage, because the birth support person, needs to be strong in that stage to even if they're not feeling it as well, just have that facade up, because that gives so much confidence and trust to the woman, knowing that their birth support person is okay and that they don't need to worry about them having a meltdown or fainting or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that generally it's going to be either that hands-on or hands-off. I feel like women are just quite one or the other, and it's often not that in between. So if your partner does like having someone there for support, you can again take that weight to help with allowing the baby to come down with gravity, but the whole gravity is not on the mum. And making sure that she's in that optimal position as well for birth, that's helping the baby come down. I've just drawn a bit of a blank. I'm not really sure what else, if I've got anything written in my notes. Yeah, and emotional and mental support as well. So those words of affirmation and encouragement in this stage can really help, because it's often when the woman is then going to be saying things like, I can't do this anymore, or cut the baby out of me, crazy things when it's the transition and you feel like you can't go any further, but that's when it's actually nearly over and you can push through, and having that birth support person to remind you that yes, you can do it and you are doing it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think those words of affirmation and someone really being there and telling you it's so important. And I completely agree, and I've heard that from other moms as well, that when it's at the peak of that dilation stage and that stage of transition, at times you have a feeling of just getting out of that pain or that stage, and but then your birth support person needs to know that what were your preferences, what did you want, and then just coach you through it, and that is so important. So Alicia, I'm just trying a question here. What are some words of affirmation that that you just stick by, and that you could recommend birth support person to sort of use in that phase, or that you have been using for your clients? Are there any?
One of my favorite ones is, often because women will say, I can't do this anymore, is for that birth support person to say you are doing it. Because that's such a nice reminder that we're looking ahead all the time, that we're forgetting that we're in the present and we're actually already doing it. Even though you're saying you can't do it, you are doing it. So I think these words are really powerful to bring you back to that present, and remembering that, coming back to the breath. I think that's another really lovely affirmation, is to, or I guess words of just, encouraging and cheering on, is to just keep taking that big breath and softening the body. When we surrender to birth, that's when things just flow from that place. So I think that any words related to surrendering, letting go, relaxing, exhaling, all of those words are really potent in that stage.
Great. So Alicia, from this discussion, and even from my personal experience, I have a feeling that our birth support person really needs to be on the same page. Like often moms are Googling and preparing for labor and birth and just understanding the stages. Would it be right to say that even partners or whoever your support person is needs to be on the same page as you? Like they need to have the same amount of knowledge so that they can look at the signs and they can know, okay, now is the time. Okay, I think she is tired in this pose. Now let us get her to the shower and try this. So would it be true that their preparation needs to be as good as yours, or what's your?
Taking my top tip.
Oh, have I? Oh no.
Yes, top tip was that whoever your support person is, especially if there's somebody in your life, like your mum or your partner, or your best friend, to make sure that they're educated and on the same page as you. Because if you're the one with all the knowledge and they have no idea where you're coming from, and if you're wanting a natural birth and they're an advocate for cesarean, they're not the right birth support person for you, and they're not on the same page for you to achieve your birth wishes. So yes, it's absolutely very valid for that person to be educated and on the same page.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So Alicia, if you could touch upon what education and preparation does a support person need to do through pregnancy, just so that they can be really well equipped on that day?
I think that having an understanding of what the onset of labour looks like is great, to know then when their partner is having those signs of labour beginning, that they're not surprised by it or scared by it, and they know that it's normal. And then, understanding that progression of labour, which we discussed in that previous Zoom chat that we did. But making sure that whatever you're researching and reading and consuming, that they're doing it with you. Yes, you're the one that's going through it in terms of that physical experience, but you're both there in the experience. And yes, you play different roles, but you are both a part of the experience. So I think it's important to be as educated as one another. And whatever you value to research and learn about, make sure that they're there with you that whole way, whether you're going to childbirth education classes, or whether you're reading a book about new motherhood, whatever it might be. I think it's really important that they are also consuming that same content, and then it evolves you together as a team, because you do want your birth support person to be a part of your team and not feel like you're on completely different teams. Like I was saying with, you don't want a natural birth and they want a cesarean birth for all women. That's just going to clash. It doesn't go together. So making sure that you're on that same team, I think, is really important.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And even if probably you're making a birth plan, just sitting with them and
together,
just saying that I'm listing these things down and this is why I want it.
So researching your options together, remembering that you have options, and you don't just have to go with the flow or do what your medical practitioner says is best for you. You know what's best for you. So sit with that birth support person, whether it's your partner or someone else, and make sure that you're aware of your options and that you are choosing what's best for the mum and the baby together.
Wonderful. Coming to the next part, Alicia, who can be your birth support person? What are the options?
So it can be absolutely anyone. And you can have multiple birth support people too. It's most common that people have their partner, but some people are birthing without partners, and that's completely okay too. And often people will reach out to their mum or to a close friend or family member, and just making sure that they are that person that understands you and your birth wishes and gets where you're coming from, and that they will be a good advocate for you. I think that just in general, it's good to have similar values in life. But it can be absolutely anyone, and it also can be a doula, or it can be anyone that you want it to be. There are no rules.
So you said your partner, your sister, your mother, your friend, or even a professional like doula. So can you give us some idea, like what kind of support can a doula provide, and can there be a combination where it's partner plus doula, or support person, or your close relative plus doula, and what are the benefits?
So a doula never replaces that birth support person that you've chosen, that's your loved one,
Yeah.
they are an additional support if you already have another birth support person. If you don't, and if you're birthing in a stage of your life where you don't have anybody to lean on, they can be your main person, but most people will have someone that they want there as their birth person. So a doula can then often help that birth support person to better support the woman labouring, rather than stepping in and taking place. The doula is that knowledgeable person and is able to then offer advice and guidance for the birth support person that you've chosen. But yeah, a doula can offer so much in this field, and don't forget as well that they're already educated in this space and they're knowledgeable, and when it comes to sitting down and going over things like your birth wishes or all those different things and understanding the stages of labour, your doula does know these things, and so they can actually help you in that process of educating yourself and your other birth support people if you have them as well, and creating that space for you to come to make intentional time to research, to perhaps suggest different avenues to seek that research, things that are probably most reliable, more supported by research rather than just naysayers. Was there anything else in your question then?
No, I think you're beautifully covered. And also, I think it's important to chat to your partner, if it's your husband or whoever, and just understand what is their idea, what's their feeling about birth. Like, sometimes I believe that like a doula as a support person can be a good support even for the partner, so that they can help you at the right time. It's not easy to watch birth and witness birth. I from my own experience, I know my husband did say that it wasn't easy for him. So it might not be everyone's cup of tea to really witness that.
And I think that's because it's not normalized as well in our society. It's a thing that's behind closed doors. It's not really spoken about in true terms. In TVs and movies, I just don't think it's actually represented accurately. And so true birth can be very confronting for people that don't understand it or aren't informed in that space.
True. So a doula in that case can be a wonderful support person, not just for the mom, for the partner, and just so that he can be a good support to the mom. So
having that person there to tell you that everything is progressing normally and it's okay is really powerful as well.
Absolutely. So we did touch upon the top tip, Alicia, already. Sorry, we jumped the topic there.
That's okay.
But did you have any other tips for a birth support person? How can they prepare, or anything that you would like to share with us?
That was my main one. And nothing else is coming to me right now. But if I think of anything for you to add in notes, I'll send you a message. But that is honestly the most important thing, in my opinion, is that, they're on that same page with you, and that you're not the only one that's doing the research, that they're doing it too, and that you're both well informed and educated on the process of the entire journey that's ahead of you. I think that's I know I'm reiterating, but I do think it's a really important point.
Absolutely. So Alicia, would you like to let our members or followers know where can we find you? So Alicia can be your wonderful birth support person, besides, of course, like she mentioned, your loved one. So where can someone find you, Alicia?
So my business is Samvita. So you can find me on Instagram at _Samvita. So it's SAMVIDA. On Facebook, it's samvita.yoga.birth. you can find me online at www.sambita.com.au. And you'll also find me on the Doula Network directory page for doulas. And I think there's one other place as well. Oh, there's another one that reached out to me, I didn't know existed until recently, is another directory page called Bonbir, BONBIR. And they've got listings for doulas and people in that space as well. And there is one more, sorry, there's so many, birthco.com.au. So that's another directory. So you'll find me on all of those spaces, and if I'm not the right person for you, or if you're from a different area, there's plenty of doulas, and I'm sure that you'll be able to find the right one to suit your needs and be that right personality type for you as well.
Great. So before we close the discussion, we had a question.
I should probably mention where I'm based as well. I'm based in Langwarrin, so near Frankston, if you haven't heard of it, but in between Cranbourne and Frankston. So sorry.
No, that's okay. So we recently had a question from one of our members about doulas, and I think this is a good chance for me to ask that question. So if you are wanting to have a doula for your birth, what are the things that you need to probably check with them, or how do you decide on a doula? Like, say, for example, someone goes through this directory and has like 5 people who pop up in the list of doulas around me. How do you choose the right one for you? If you have any suggestion around that.
Yeah, I personally am big on that gut feeling. And I do feel like when we let ourselves lean into that, we will get that feeling of, yes, this is the right person. This feels safe. This feels exciting. This feels aligned. Or no, I don't think they're that right person for me. I don't feel safe to open up. They scare me. They intimidate me. So trusting those feelings to start with. But if you do find a few and you think you like all of them a little bit, but you're not too sure, it's good to just have a bit of a browse on their website and read about who they are and what their packages include and what they're offering you. And most doulas will offer some type of obligation-free meet or Zoom. And I also do that, a 15-minute free Zoom to just ask your questions and get to know each other a little bit. And trust that then in that process, you'll get that feeling of whether they're the right person for you or not. But I do think it's deeply intuitive on something like this. Yeah.
So you do suggest that have that initial chat and
definitely.
Discuss.
It's a really intimate season of your life, and like as well for me, I don't want to be that wrong person for you in that season. Like when I have a video chat with someone, if I feel like I'm the wrong person, like I'm not going to go ahead, because I also trust my intuition, and if it was the wrong fit for me, I know it's ultimately the wrong fit for them too. So you would hope that all doulas would be the same in that respect. But it's definitely worth leaning into that obligation-free, whatever it might be, a video or a meet and greet. Most doulas will do it because it is a big investment and it is that vulnerable season of your life, and it's there for a reason, to make sure that they're that right person for you. So use it.
That's amazing. So around how many weeks do you recommend that people start looking for a doula? Or when does that discussion between doula and the pregnant women actually start? Like, does she accompany them to a few appointments, or how does it work? Like, what's the structure? And I imagine that would be a package as well, like some doulas do only childbirth. Exactly. So how does that work, Alicia?
So I would recommend at least being onto like your research and looking into different doulas in your early stages, but you might not need to reach out until those mid stages of pregnancy. It depends on the level of support that you're looking for. So if you're just looking for support after birth, then you might not need to get onto that so soon. But if you're wanting that pregnancy and birth support, it's probably better to get onto it a little bit earlier. So in those first few weeks or the first trimester of your pregnancy, that might be a more ideal stage to get looking and interviewing with those doulas to find the right fit for you. And everyone is going to also be different in their availability. So some doulas might be quite available, and if you contact them quite late in your pregnancy, they'll be able to take you on, and some might book out really quickly, and in those cases it'll be a first in best dressed basis. So if there's someone that you're really drawn to, reaching out earlier doesn't hurt, like you may as well. And if they aren't ready to take on clients yet, they'll just tell you to come back in a certain amount of time. But most of them, I feel like we're generally aware of like that next season of our lives in terms of like 6 to 12 months, and if we can take women on. So yeah, because pregnancy is around that 9 to 10 months. But yeah, I definitely would recommend at least looking into it earlier, even if you don't reach out, to just see who's in your area and who's available.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Alicia, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was so informative session actually.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I do have a couple of questions. The first one would be, if I won't be able to make decision for myself, and if the birth support person has to make it, will he be given chance to have a discussion with health support person, or he has to simply go with his intuition, like how it would be?
Do you mean if something like an emergency arises?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I think it would be really beneficial to chat with each other beforehand about what you want to happen in those situations if that happens to arise. But I'm not 100% sure on how these things pan out in hospital. I personally don't offer my doula services in hospitals, because that for me is just not my aligned space, and I just don't feel like I'm the right person to support in hospitals. So I can't completely answer your question in terms of how that would pan out formally. But I would hope you would get a moment, your partner would get a moment to work it out. I guess it depends on how dire the situation is.
Okay. And the other one is very stupid, I guess, but I do get this question many times. So I believe that my husband would be my support person. So do I need to arrange somebody to take me to the hospital? Because I guess like he has to drop me to the hospital and he has to be with me all the time. So do I need to arrange somebody who drives me to the hospital while my husband stays with me? Is that so, or just he has to arrange it his own?
So he can drive you to the hospital. You can go together if you want, but if you want somebody else to drive you guys so that he can be, not focusing on the road, that's okay too. That's personal choice, but he can drive you to the hospital. You can hop into the back of the car and he can be there verbally to support you and to make sure that you're okay. Depending on how far along you are, you might be over the back of the seat and just breathing down, baby. And if it's a little bit earlier, perhaps you feel comfortable enough to sit or lie down. Yeah, completely personal choice though. Not a stupid question.
Yeah, very important question, Sheetal. And like if your husband is driving, you can keep communicating like I was doing when I was.
I don't want to stress him out.
Yeah, so long as he's not that person that's going to freak out and have an accident. And if you think he is, then maybe have somebody else drive.
Thank you so much. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
No worries. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think those were very important questions, Sheetal. Thank you so much for joining. And I just wanted to mention that, like Alicia said, it's your personal choice whether your husband is driving. And of course, again, discussing whether at that point, would it be better if somebody else is driving you both and he can be your support. But just from my experience, my husband was driving me, and each time I had a contraction, I would tell him to stop, because so that I could breathe and in and out and do whatever helped me at that time. And that really helped, and we both could communicate properly on that front, that okay, contraction is coming, stop, that kind of a thing. And that really helped. And your birth support person being there is generally a good mental, physical support that you need. So yeah. And just on your first question, where you asked, like Alicia said, unless it's a very, very medically driven situation where I believe you are not able to take a call for yourself, that's a different scenario. But yeah, I think in most of the cases, like Alicia said, you will always have a moment to chat together. And then again, coming back to the basics, like keep chatting to your husband, keep discussing those scenarios. If you're going for childbirth classes, you both are aware of what directions your birth can go in. So just being on the same page, that is so important. Hey mamas, I hope you enjoyed this chat. And if you have any questions for Alicia or myself on this topic, please feel free to let us know in the comments below. Or even if you enjoyed this chat and there was something that you really loved about it, please leave your feedback in the comments. It really helps us to understand whether you guys are finding this content helpful or not, and how can we improve. So thank you so much. I'll see you again for our next chat soon. Bye.